A few years ago, I had the opportunity to conduct an experiment. We took two of my leadership team members who had never worked together before, put them in a room for 6 weeks, and asked them to come up with as many innovative ideas as possible for our product. They were only allowed to meet for 1 hour each week, and for the rest of the time, they had to work on their own. The result was 0 innovative ideas. At first, we thought it might be because they didn't get along, but no, they actually got along very well. It wasn't until we debriefed at the end of the 6 weeks that we realized what had happened. Each person had spent the entire time working on their own, diligently writing down ideas independently. But because they only had 1 hour each week to discuss their ideas, they were constantly trying to top each other's ideas instead of building on them. As soon as one person would suggest something, the other would say, "Well, how about this?" And then the first person would respond, "Well, no, how about this?" And the conversation would go back and forth like that without ever landing on anything substantial. They had both been so focused on proving that their own ideas were better than their teammates' ideas that they forgot to try to make their ideas better together. It's a lesson I've carried with me ever since, and it's the same lesson I want to start with today. How do you make the highest performing teams? What makes some teams perform better than others? In high-performing teams, the answer is obvious. High-performing teams are made up of people who are better than others. If you look at any elite sports team or world-class business unit, you'll find that the reason why they're able to achieve such high levels of performance is because they have people who are better than average. But if you look at lower-performing teams, the situation is more complex. When we look at underperforming teams, we usually tend to point the finger at one person and blame them for not pulling their weight. Maybe there's someone who isn't pulling their share of the load and everyone else has to pick up their slack. Maybe there's someone who is always late with their work, forcing the rest of the team to stay late and work overtime just so they can meet their deadlines. Maybe there's someone who is constantly negative and brings everyone else's energy down. Or maybe there's someone who doesn't seem to care about the work and is just coasting through. When we see situations like these, it's easy to conclude that the problem lies in the fact that there's one bad apple spoiling the whole bunch, and while having a bad apple on the team is definitely something to be avoided, it's actually pretty rare. I mean, think about all the teams you've been a part of over the years. How many of them had a bad apple? Chances are it wasn't very many. Most teams aren't held back by a single person. Instead, they're held back by the collective behavior of everyone on the team. One of the most important skills I've learned as a leader is how to spot patterns of collective mediocrity early on before they turn into a full-blown problem. So here are 3 of the most common behaviors that I look out for whenever I'm assessing a team's potential. The first behavior to look out for is what I call the Buckingham Fountain effect. You see, in Chicago, there's a famous fountain called the Buckingham Fountain. Every 20 minutes, it shoots water 20 stories into the air. But every day, there's a crowd of people standing directly underneath the fountain getting soaked by its spray. Whenever I see this kind of behavior on a team, I know that they're headed for trouble because the simple truth is that high-performing teams don't spray water everywhere. Their efforts are focused and targeted. If you watch the Olympics, you'll notice that all of the gold medal teams display this kind of focus. Take the U.S. women's soccer team, for example. When they play, you will notice that they pass the ball around, patiently looking for the best angle and the best opportunity to score. They don't just kick the ball towards the goal in hopes that it'll go in. On the other hand, if you watch a bronze medal team play, they're usually way less patient. They panic when they're close to the goal and end up making sloppy passes or taking wild shots from impossible angles. Their efforts are unfocused and undisciplined. Now, unfortunately, most of us are naturally inclined to be more like the bronze medal team than the gold medal team. After all, who wants to pass the ball when they could score the winning goal themselves? But if you want to be a high-performing team, you have to learn how to resist that instinct and be more patient. You have to learn how to hold on to the ball and wait for the perfect moment to strike. The second behavior to look out for is what I call groupthink. This is the tendency for teams to avoid conflict and make decisions quickly. Just like unfocused efforts, this desire for harmony is also a recipe for disaster. That's because in the business world, speed often trumps quality. And when you combine speed with low-quality inputs, you get low-quality outputs. I learned this lesson the hard way early in my career when I worked at a tech company. Our CEO at the time wanted us to release a new feature, but he wanted us to move fast and break things. And while his intentions were good, we ended up spending so little time testing and refining the new feature that it ended up costing the company hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost revenue. In hindsight, I can clearly see that our team was suffering from groupthink. We knew the CEO wanted us to move fast, so we just went ahead and shipped the feature without putting in the necessary effort to make sure it was right. We didn't want to rock the boat or upset anyone, so we just went along with whatever the CEO wanted. The good news is that groupthink is easy to spot and even easier to fix. You just need to be willing to speak up and voice your opinions. If you see something that doesn't seem right, say something. Don't let the fear of rocking the boat keep you silent. And the third behavior to look out for is what I call social loafing. Social loafing is the tendency for people to put in less effort when working in a group than when working alone. This happens for two reasons. First, when people work in groups, they often feel like their contributions aren't being recognized. And second, they don't feel like they're being held accountable. For example, imagine you're on a team of 10 people who have to build 10 widgets. If you're not paying attention and everyone else builds their widget, you could just piggyback off of someone else's work and not get caught. In situations like these, people will often purposely underperform, hoping that the team will pick up their slack. The worst part is that social loafing is contagious. When you see other people putting in less effort, you're more likely to do the same thing yourself. Before you know it, you have a whole team of people underperforming. So if you want to prevent social loafing on your team, you need to make sure that everyone feels like their contributions are being recognized and that they are being held accountable. One way to do this is to give everyone on the team ownership of a specific outcome. By giving everyone a clear sense of purpose, you'll make sure that they feel like their work is valued and that they are responsible for achieving a specific outcome. Then you can hold them accountable for whether or not they hit their target. You see, high-performing teams don't just happen. They're created intentionally. You won't find a high-performing team of soccer players just hanging out at a local pub. They're either training on the field or working out at the gym. Similarly, you won't find a high-performing business team hanging out at the local coffee shop. They're either working on a project or attending a workshop. To build a high-performing team, you need to make sure that everyone is focused, that no one is afraid to speak up, and that everyone is working hard. If you can do those three things, then you'll be well on your way to creating a team that can achieve extraordinary results. Now, if you want to learn how to apply these lessons to your own life, I'd recommend that you check out this video on how to be more effective at work.